Hey everybody, welcome back to WireDogSec. Got another video for you guys. Before we get into it, be sure to hit that subscribe button. If you're not subscribed, hit that like button, comment below on your thoughts and opinions on the information shared, etc., etc. All that good stuff. Helps out the channel, helps get the good word out there. You already know what to do. Anyway, we're going to take a look at a couple articles here talking about old vulnerabilities and how they are being exploited by attackers, especially in regard to ransomware. So let's go ahead and get into it here. This article is from HelpNet Security. Most vulnerabilities associated with ransomware are old. Researchers identified 56 new vulnerabilities associated with ransomware threats among a total of 344 threats identified in 2022, marking a 19% increase year over year. It's got that little fancy chart there, fancy colors and the percentages there. Of course, Microsoft Windows is the going to have the most targeted attacks because it's like the most common operating system out there that businesses use. Next, below it's going to be Red Hat Linux, which is very, very popular in enterprises. More Linux systems, got OpenSUSE, or however you pronounce it, and you got Windows Server 2022. Threat actors are actively searching the internet and deep and dark web for 180 vulnerabilities known to be associated with ransomware. In the last quarter of 2022, these groups used ransomware to exploit 21 of these vulnerabilities, according to a new report from Cybersecurity Works, CSW, Avanti, Cyware, and Securin, which makes sense. If they are ransomware operators, of course, they're going to look for vulnerabilities that they can possibly exploit to make their attacks more efficient. They always want to improve their return on investment. It takes time and other resources to attack organizations, so they need to have a good positive ROI, which is return on investment, when it comes to breaching organizations. Kill chains impact more IT products, according to MITRE ATT&CK. Now exists 57 vulnerabilities associated with ransomware. Ransomware groups can use kill chains to exploit vulnerabilities that span 81 unique products. Scanners are not detecting all threats. Popular scanners do not detect 20 vulnerabilities associated with ransomware. I wonder what scanners are talking about. Maybe they're talking about like Nessus or Rapid7 vulnerability scanners, etc., etc. But anyway, if you don't know what MITRE ATT&CK is, be sure to check that out and be sure to click on this link here inside of this article. Take a look at what they're talking about here. More APT groups are launching ransomware attacks. CSW observed more than 50 APT groups developing or deploying ransomware to launch attacks. 51% increase from 33 in 2020. 4 APT groups got them listed out there were newly associated with ransomware in Q4 2022 and mounted crippling attacks. Now, I did talk about an article that discussed that ransomware profits were down last year, but it did state that ransomware attacks weren't down. They're still attacking with ransomware because it's a good business model. Just think about it. Many vulnerabilities have not yet been added to CISA's KEV list. While CISA's known exploited vulnerabilities KEV's catalog contains 866 or 8,661 vulnerabilities, 131 of the vulnerabilities associated with ransomware are yet to be added. Interesting. I wonder why they haven't done that yet. Multiple software products are affected by open source issues, reusing open source code and software vulnerabilities, replicates vulnerabilities such as the one found in Apache Log4j or Log4i. Examples got them listed out there. And of course, Log4j, if you don't know what that is, be sure to look that up. That was very, very popular. I believe it was last year or that's yeah, 2021, late 2021. This made news headlines. It was making a big ruckus in the cybersecurity community. I even got asked about Log4j on a interview. So if you don't know what that is, be sure to look that up and look at how it is exploited and how to prevent such attacks from happening. As always, you need a patch. But what if you can't patch? Think about possible compensating controls in order to reduce the risk of that vulnerability being exploited or reducing the impact of that vulnerability when it is exploited. Software package or software weaknesses persist across releases. More than 80 common weaknesses enumeration (CWE flaws) contribute to vulnerabilities that are exploited by attackers, with a 54% increase from 2021 to 2022. This finding highlights the need for software vendors and application developers to evaluate software code before it is released. And that is a cybersecurity best practice. You always want to analyze your code, get it reviewed by penetration testers, hire a company or somebody. Come inside your organizations, take a look at your source code, make sure it's as secure as it can be before you release it to the public or to your customers and such. And they also have automated tools out there such as like Veracode that will automatically analyze your code and tell you weaknesses that it found so you can fix them. Old is still gold for ransomware operators. More than 76% of vulnerabilities still being exploited by ransomware were discovered between 2010, 2019, and 2022. Of the 56 vulnerabilities tied to ransomware, 20 were discovered between 2015 and 2019. These are very old. I mean, if you haven't patched your vulnerabilities and they're lagging behind, freaking several years, you need to get it done. I mean, that just allows the attacker more time to exploit those old vulnerabilities because they've been around longer. They can develop more tools that become more efficient and exploiting that type of vulnerability and such. A lot of people get distracted by the, oh no, another new zero day hit the news headlines. We need to get this remediated immediately. That might be the case, but you also need to take a look at the thousands or hundreds of old vulnerabilities that exist in your environment. Take a prioritized um, look at things and get them resolved. CVSS scores may mask risk. The study found 57 ransomware associated vulnerabilities with low and medium sized scores that are associated with infamous ransomware families and can wreak havoc on an organization and disrupt business continuity. Our survey findings indicate that knowledge has not transferred to power for many organizations, blah, blah, blah. IT and security teams are being tripped up by open source, old and low scoring vulnerabilities associated with ransomware. IT and security teams will want to scrutinize both in-house and vendor software to identify and remediate vulnerabilities before deploying new solutions and patching existing software as soon as vulnerabilities are announced. Ransomware is top of mind for every organization, whether in the private or public sector. We already know that. Combating ransomware has been placed at the top of the agenda for world leaders because of the rising toll placed on organizations, communities, and individuals. It's imperative that all organizations truly understand their attack surface, blah, blah, blah. And that is very important. Understand your attack surface. I mean, a lot of vulnerabilities out there may not apply to your organization. So make sure to find which ones that do and then take a prioritized look at things and then get those vulnerabilities remediated. U.S. state security report also provides a special investigation into U.S. attack surface, securing passively scanned U.S. government assets exposed to the internet in all states. Key findings include the West has the greatest attack surface with the highest numbers of assets. South has most open exposures, followed by the West, Midwest. You can read the rest there. I'm not going to read everything here. I'll have the article link in the description as always. IT and security teams working for the U.S. government have the opportunity to practice good cyber hygiene and reduce their agency's attack surface. A report identifies the top 10 vulnerabilities these teams should focus on. Look, they don't have to work for them, so it should be easier to get these vulnerabilities remediated. But it's the government. If you ever work for the government, things are slow moving. There's a lot of red tape, et cetera, et cetera. But, that's not really an excuse not to patch your systems or remediate vulnerabilities. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the other article. All right, this article is from VentureBeat. Ransomware attackers finding new ways to weaponize old vulnerabilities. Now, this is going to cover some of the same stuff we covered in the previous article, but let's go take a look at some of the highlighted items here. Ransomware attackers are finding new ways to exploit organization security weaknesses by weaponizing old vulnerabilities, which we stated before in the previous article. Combining long-standing ransomware attack tools with the latest AI and machine learning technologies, organized crime groups or crime syndicates and advanced persistent threat groups continue to out-innovate enterprises, which is no surprise here. I mean, just think about it. These guys are coming up with different ways to breach your organization. And of course, they're going to take advantage of AI, machine learning, and even stuff like ChatGPT. Maybe they'll come up with their own version of ChatGPT to try to breach your organization and steal your data. See, ransomware topping agenda for CISOs, world leaders alike. Ransomware thought the lens of threat and vulnerability management identified 56 new vulnerabilities associated with that. We already covered that part, so let's take a scroll down here. 160,344 vulnerabilities listed in the NVD 3.3 belong to the most dangerous exploit types, which is RCE code, remote code execution, and privilege escalation. Of the 330 weaponized vulnerabilities, 344 associated with 217 ransomware families and 50 APT groups, making them extremely dangerous. And it's got a little photo here and have everything nice and neat for you. So you want to take a look at that. Ransomware is a top of mind for every organization, right? What ransomware attackers know? Well-funded, organized crime, and APT groups dedicated members of their teams to studying attack patterns and old vulnerabilities they can target undetected. Okay, routinely fly under the radar. Popular vulnerability scanners. Already know about. Okay, listed them out here. Like I said, Nessus and Expos, which is by Rapid7 and Qualys. Okay, attackers choose which vulnerabilities to attack based on how well they can avoid detection. That's very interesting and makes sense. The longer you remain undetected, the longer you can carry out your attack and catch the organization with their pants down. So, the study identified 20 vulnerabilities associated with ransomware, which plugins and detection signatures aren't available yet. That's nice. And it's got a couple CVs listed out here. VentureBeat has learned that ransomware attackers also prioritize finding companies' cyber insurance policies and their coverage limits. They demand ransom and the amount of the company's maximum coverage. The findings jibes with a recently recorded video interview with Paul Furtado, VP analyst Gardner, which that makes sense. I mean, if they're going to breach organization, of course they're going to try to get as much payout as possible. So it'll make sense for them to try to find that those cyber insurance policies, take a look at them, say, oh, okay, you max out at 500,000 or whatever. So I'm going to ask for that. And a lot of times they can get negotiated down some, but who knows? I'd rather not get breached and have to deal with that. Let's see, weaponized vulnerability spreading fast. Mid-sized organizations tend to get hit the hardest by ransomware attacks because with small cybersecurity budgets, they can't afford to add staff just for security. And yes, that is absolutely true. There is a cybersecurity skill gap, but there's also um, a lot of resource constraints when it deals with getting new staff for cybersecurity. Because a lot of times organizations say, hey, you know what? Let's just buy some new fancy tool instead of buying or getting new people here to um, manage these tools. I've seen that quite a bit in my career, and it doesn't make sense to me. Sophos' latest study found that companies in the manufacturing sector pay the highest ransoms, reaching $2,036,189, significantly across the cross-industry average of $812,000. All right, 76% of all ransomware attacks will happen after business hours. Most organizations that get hit are targeted subsequent times. There's an 80% chance that you will be targeted again within 90 days. 90% of all ransomware attacks are hitting companies with less than $1 billion in revenue, which that makes sense as well. Now, if you're targeting those small size or mid-sized organizations, like I said earlier, they're not going to have the funds, or maybe they don't want to put up the funds to hire more staff to manage and secure the organization. Cyber attackers know what to look for. Identifying auto vulnerabilities is the first step in weaponizing them. Studies' most noteworthy findings illustrate how sophisticated cybercrime or organized crime and APT groups are becoming at finding the weakness vulnerabilities to exploit. Here are a few examples here. Kill chains impacting, which you already covered in the previous article, but if you want to go ahead and take a look at this, go ahead. Ransomware groups can use kill chains to exploit vulnerabilities that span 81 products, vendors such as Microsoft, Oracle, F5, VMware, Atlassian, Apache, and Sonic Wall. APT groups launching ransomware attacks more aggressively. More than 50 APT groups launching attacks, a 51% increase from 33 in 2020. 4 groups, and they're listed again here. And let's see here, anything else interesting? It's got a little breakdown here in a chart. Main enterprise software products affected by open source issues, which we already covered, Log4j, Log4i, and all that good stuff there. Ransomware magnet for experienced attackers, cyber attacks using ransomware becoming more lethal and more lucrative, attracting the most sophisticated and well-funded organized crime and APT groups globally. Actors are increasingly targeting flaws in cyber hygiene, including legacy vulnerability management processes. Let's see, for example, he continued many only patch new vulnerabilities are those disclosed in the VD. Others only use the CVSS to score and prioritize vulnerabilities. Ransomware attackers continue to look for new ways to weaponize old vulnerabilities. Blah blah blah. All right, like I said, make sure to get a good patch management process in place, a good vulnerability management process in place. Not every vulnerability is going to have a patch for it, so there may be some kind of system or configuration setting you need to set in order to mitigate that vulnerability. All right, if y'all enjoyed the video, enjoyed the information discussed, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the comment section with your thoughts and opinions. As always, thank you for watching. Have a nice day.